Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Marathon Monday. Welcome in to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. It is Marathon Monday, April 17th, 2023. Yep, I come to you from Boston, Red Sox, Angels. By the time you're listening, is probably already underway. So BJ Cunningham's here. We're rooting for the under today, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Ohtani, Bayo, your pitching matchup. Hopefully they're still in, or the game could be over by the time you listen. Anthony DeBundo's here as well. We're live with Payoff Pitch every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. We're presented by BetMGM. Please rate, review, subscribe. We are off and running this baseball season. So that's the only day game today, but the marathon, Sox and Angels at 11, and then everything else starts at 6:40 Eastern and beyond. 13 games. Let's, not including 12 games, not including Red Sox and Angels. Let's go to best bets to get us started. This was your crew on Friday. You guys gave out a couple plus money underdogs, of course, and those went well. BJ, we'll start with you. What do you like for a best bet on this Monday slate?
I like the Blue Jays Astros under 8.5. You can still find a -115 out there, or under 8 at even money works as well. With the two starting pitchers we have on the mound, I really don't think this total should be sitting at around 8 or 8 and even 8.5. Kevin Gausman, last three straight seasons now, he's at an expected ERA under 3.6. And last season, and Anthony's going to love this, his stuff plus was 109, which was 12th in Major League Baseball. And his pitching plus was also 109. That was second in Major League Baseball. And the reason why he is so good is because he has one of the most deadly pitches in Major League Baseball. His split finger is outstanding. He threw it 35% of the time last season. It had a stuff plus rating of 116. Opposing hitters only had a 170 expected batting average, 200 expected weighted on base average, and it produced a whiff rate of 44%. The Astros last season against right-handed splitters, 151 expected batting average. He'll be facing Christian Javier, who is a dark horse Cy Young candidate. I know Zerillo and Anthony have been touting him for a long time now because he was really, really good last season. 2.43 expected ERA in 149 innings. That is incredibly impressive. His stuff plus was 116. That was 15th. Pitching plus was 106. He's a heavy fastball usage guy, which is a really dangerous game to play against the Blue Jays. But he only allowed a 180 expected batting average on that fastball last season, and his slider is very, very deadly as well. It produced a 39% whiff rate, and opposing hitters only had a 126 expected batting average against it. Last season, the Astros were the best bullpen in Major League Baseball, while the Blue Jays were sitting around average. But with these two starting pitchers on the mound, with both bullpens also being top 10 in pitching plus, I really don't think this total should be sitting around 8.5 or even 8. I only have 2.49 runs projected. So under 8.5 at -115 or under 8 at even money works as well.
All right. Houston, one of the better over teams in baseball to begin the season, 11-5. DeBundo, what do you got for a best bet today?
Yeah, there's been a weird market discount on Corbin Burnes the last couple starts, and I'm going to continue to bet on him and expect him to be just fine. There's nothing in his indicators that make me concerned. So I'm going to take the Milwaukee Brewers first 5 innings at -145 at the Seattle Mariners against Chris Flexen. Some of the pitching projected numbers could get this difference between the two starting pitchers as high as 2 runs in ERA, with Burnes sitting around 2.5 projected and Flexen sitting around 4.59. That's a huge gap between the two pitchers. And really, Burnes has struck out fewer batters in the first 3 starts of the season, but there's nothing in his underlying numbers that makes me concerned that all of a sudden his stuff has fallen off. His cutter, which is his best pitch, which some hitters have remarked is the best pitch they've faced in all of baseball, is still has a negative run value allowed this year, a 303 slug, 212 batting average, 299 WOBA. So it's still a very good pitch. He just hasn't gotten the same number of strikeouts on it, but the stuff plus on it is just as good. And so I think the sample is just too small, and I'm expecting Burnes to bounce back to be what he normally is. His ERA is sitting at 5.4, but his xERA is at 3.1. Stuff plus still 9th best amongst all starters this year. So I'm not worried about Corbin Burnes. Chris Flexen had an encouraging first start, but got absolutely destroyed in his last outing against the Cubs at Wrigley with the wind blowing out. It was a tough pitching environment, but he gave up 8 runs. So it was a very discouraging performance. The stuff plus continues to be bad. His fastball is one of the worst in baseball. He tries to hide it, but he doesn't get away with that because the rest of his stuff is not good enough. So I'm going to lay the juice here on Milwaukee in the first 5. I think we're getting a Burns discount. BJ and I were actually recording One to Go last night, and I was like, am I crazy here? Why is this only minus 145? And he agreed, and so I'm going to make that my best bet as well on the Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, very good. They're your best bets. We've got a total and a first 5 play from both of the guys today to start us off. Moving on to, we got 2 really good series, I think, going on starting tonight. And one of them we're going to highlight. The Atlanta Braves and the San Diego Padres meet for the second time this season. They met early April, which now we're at mid-April, so it wasn't long ago. Atlanta lost 3 out of 4 at home to San Diego. They won their home opener, walk-off, and then 5-4, and then a blowout to wrap it up. 4-1 sandwiched in there as well. Money's coming in on the Braves visiting San Diego tonight. 72% of the bets, 81% of the dollars. Max Fried is on the mound for Atlanta and Ryan Weathers for San Diego. BJ Cunningham, are we interested in fading the public and riding with the Padres, who have had early season success against the Braves?
I'm passing on this one. I project this, at around Atlanta minus 132. So you need to get way down for me to potentially make a play on either both Atlanta or New Zealand to really rise up. And the thing about it is Max Fried's coming back off a hamstring injury. So we don't know exactly how healthy he is. Last season he was in that Cy Young elite category where he was around a 2.8 xERA. He's, incredible pitcher. And Ryan Weathers, I don't really know what to make of him so far. Like, he's had 2 really good starts. He's proved me wrong. First time I came on this podcast, we were talking about how horrible his numbers were in AAA. And we're like, why are the Padres even pitching this guy? But he's put up 2 really, really good starts. I mean, his expected ERA is sitting around 2.6 through those 2 starts. So I don't really know what to make of him right now. Even looking at some of his, his stuff plus is not great, but his pitching plus is 103. So he's got good location. He's been, very, very good with all of his pitches. But yeah, I am passing just because there's a lot of unknown with Max Fried. And also I don't really know what to make of Ryan Weathers right now.
Fried was covering first base, and that's how he tweaked his hammy for 4th inning of.
And that's not a good injury for a pitcher. That's where you get all that's where you get all your explosiveness from. So,
and your liability as a defender, possibly.
Right, and that's a little concerning.
Max Fried on the mound. Dabundo. Braves have won 6 in a row. Is this like, even if you don't go in the direction of fading the public, but it feels the Braves are being a little overlooked because of what Tampa did to these first couple weeks. But a lot of folks at Action Network were trying to figure out the spots to fade Tampa when the Rays would come back down to earth and go against them, and the market kind of got ridiculous. Is the public crazy here going with Fried coming off an injury on the road at San Diego?
Yeah, I understand BJ's point about the worry of the injury with Fried, but for me, I'm much more concerned about like an arm or a shoulder re-aggravation or just not quite being right. The hamstring, like, yes, it matters for pushing off and whatnot, but they're not going to put him out there unless it's 100%. And the risk there, I think, is lower, thus, with just like losing velocity or not quite, being right, pushing off. Like, I'm less concerned about that than I am like an arm injury where you just don't really know until you get out there. Like, okay, my arm is not what it should be. I'm down a couple ticks. So I'm not as worried about Max Fried. I'm also impressed by Ryan Weathers, who has improved his velocity on this fastball. And that's really been the biggest difference between last year and this year. He's up a couple ticks. And that has made what was a very bad fastball into an okay fastball. And he's also added a new slider sweeper. So the change in the pitch mix has made him a better pitcher. The thing about Atlanta this year and all of last year, it was true that Atlanta was worse against left-handed pitching. So in this case, you would say, okay, well, it's a lefty. Well, this year, it's a small sample. Atlanta is a top 5 offense against lefties, but it's driven by a 425 BABIP against left-handed pitchers. So I'm still not really believing in the fact that Atlanta is going to be much better against lefties this year than righties. I still think they're a worse team against left-handed batters. I mentioned Weathers being better. I'm expecting Fried to be fine. I took some under 8.5 about 5 minutes ago. That's going to be my bet for this one. I just think it's a little bit too high given the improvements Weathers has made and the split advantage for the Padres.
Early season Atlanta, good over team, 9-6-1 to the over. The Padres 8-9, same as their overall record early on in the year. Really quick, I know we've talked about the Dodgers being liable, not as good as the public thinks. Any concerns? I mean, we talked a lot of San Diego on this podcast before the season started. I know Zerillo's been on him. Zerillo likes him a lot to win the division, has some pennant futures. Any concerns to this start? Either of you have a thought on that with San Diego, or is too much time left to even think about that?
I certainly do have some concerns in terms of getting to the playoffs and what they look like at that point, because the starting pitching doesn't have a true ace. Joe Musgrove is coming back now. We'll see what he looks like. Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, you pitched yesterday. He pitched well, but I think the biggest question mark is what are they getting from those guys who have had bouts of inconsistency in their careers? The back end of the rotation with Waka, he hasn't been great. So there are definitely some question marks about the pitching, but they have a guy, Fernando Tatis, who's going to come back in a couple of weeks. And once he's back, it's a very different lineup with him in it.
He's hitting a few home runs in AAA right now.
Yeah, he's hitting some Mickey Mouse ballpark home runs out there at the PCL. Right now. If you just hit a fly ball, it leaves the yard. So yeah, he's been good, and he is good. So that will be definitely a boost to this lineup. I mean, they're not getting the production they thought they'd get from Juan Soto. Soto's hitting like 225. He is not adjusted well to the pitch clock. That's a problem. Like, they have a lack of depth in the lineup too that could get exposed come October, but I still think they're good enough to be there. I mean, the division race is going to be close though.
Tatis 10 for his last 12 with 6 home runs in 3 games.
Just a few.
Just a few. And for those curious, at BetMGM, the Padres plus 1,000 to win the World Series. Dodgers plus 650, and the Dodgers are under 500 to begin the season. Yeah.
How is this? Still
under 96.5, Brendan?
Win total. That's right. That was one of your totals that you gave out this year. And did either of you, real quick, last thought on the NL West, did either of you jump on the Diamondbacks like Zerillo did to make the playoffs?
No.
Yeah, Zerillo joined my bandwagon. I've been driving the bus.
Oh, you have? I apologize.
Yes.
No, well, you gave out over, right? Win total over before the season.
I joined the playoff train as well, yeah. I mean, the whole NL is really – I mean, you look at the Cardinals pitching, it's been a disaster. The starting pitching, they can't get anybody through 6 innings except for Montgomery. The Phillies pitching, they've had one start of more than 6 innings. Nola's velocity's down. That's a concern. And so these other teams that were supposed to be in that mix for the wild card just don't look thus far. It's very early, as good as we expected.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I always like mixing in some futures thoughts.
Well, and Arizona, with Davies going down, now they're starting 2 of the 3 young guys I really like, and the other one's knocking on the door, waiting for the next Madison Bumgarner thing. It's like the Grim Reaper standing behind him with the thing ready to take out Bumgarner. And then that rotation is very, very good. Yeah.
And I think, look, it's notable as well for this particular week with the Mets playing the Dodgers and the Braves playing the Padres. That could be a nice little break here. I mean, Arizona's got to go to St. Louis, and the Cardinals were expecting to be better and turn their mediocre start around. But just keep an eye on that. If the D-backs have a good week and 2 tough series for the Dodgers and Padres, respectively. Moving on to underdogs of the day, 12 gamer, not including Red Sox and Angels. Of course, that took place earlier this morning. BJ Cunningham, you are riding with Rich Hill today. Explain yourself.
I am, and I understand that Rich Hill is old. I understand that his first 2 starts have not gone well. But with that being said,
about the clock too. He's bitching about the pitch clock now too.
Yeah, so. Of course he is. He's old. He was okay with the Red Sox last season. Like, he was a 4.08 xERA pitcher. He underperformed. He's going against Kyle Freeland, who has drastically overperformed to start the season. He's due for a ton of negative regression. He was over a 5 xERA pitcher last season. And here's what it comes down to, Brendan, is yes, you could give Kyle Freeland the advantage here in the starting pitching matchup, but the Pirates have been hitting the ball really well this season. Like, they're 17th in weighted on base average and 19th in weighted runs created plus against left-handed pitching. I know that doesn't sound great, but for a team that was near the bottom all of last season and was dreadful, like, that is a significant improvement. Now the Rockies, who were one of the best offenses against left-handed pitching, well, now they're 21st in weighted on base average. I know it's a small sample size, but now they're starting to take a dip. And one important thing to note here is the Pirates bullpen. Yes, it has overperformed to start the season because they have a similar xFIP to what Colorado has, but they've had a significantly better stuff plus, significantly better pitching plus rating than the Rockies. And most importantly, this game is going to be played in Coors Field. The Pirates have the lowest home run per 9 rate of any bullpen in Major League Baseball this season. So even if you give Freeland an edge over Hill, the offensive matchup is pretty even. The Pirates have advantage in the bullpen. The Pirates are a significantly better defensive team and a significantly better base running team. So yes, Freeland might be better than Hill, but the Pirates have advantages in almost every other area on the field. So I only project the Rockies at minus 109. I know Zerillo only has them at minus 115. So anything plus 123 or better, that'd be my price target on the Pirates. Does have some value.
Pittsburgh 9-7, one of the early season surprises. Rich Hill on the bump. BJ's on Team Rich Hill today. Debundo, a series we just discussed briefly, or in terms of it happening, is we haven't discussed an actual angle to the game, but the Dodgers and Mets meet this evening, and are the once again the Dodgers being slightly overvalued potentially?
Yeah, I think so. Barry Horse bet this morning, unfortunately, so it has come down. The Mets are now down to plus 125. I still like them down to plus 120. I'm going to take the Mets here. Split advantage for both sides. Mets were a top 5 offense last season against right-handed pitching. They project similarly this year. Dodgers clearly worse against left-handed pitching in the middle of their lineup. Will Smith did get the day off yesterday, so I expect Will Smith back in the lineup. So that certainly helps the Dodgers offense, which has not been nearly what it was last season when it was clearly number 1 in baseball. This year, it's closer to 4th or 5th. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a big difference at the margins. David Peterson. Too many D names. David Peterson. Who's Drew Peterson? The USC guard? Yeah. Okay, so yep. David Peterson has also had an increase in his stuff plus this year. And I know he's not typically a stuff guy, but he has good command, which is important against the Dodgers. These are two lineups who really don't chase. They're bottom 7 in chase rate. May has much more command problems than Peterson. Thus, I'm more worried about May going up against this lineup than I am against Peterson against the Dodgers. I know May has the better stuff. He's the better pitcher, but overall, if when things go wrong for Dustin May, he tends to miss the zone a bunch, and that's got me concerned in this matchup. So I'm going to take the Mets plus 126.
All right, let's give out some final bets so we can get out of here. BJ, you can go first. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Anthony on the Brewers both full game and for the first 5 innings. You know, Milwaukee's stuff plus in their bullpen has been the best in Major League Baseball this season. So there really hasn't been a huge drop off there from what they were last season. And yeah, this is a crazy price on Corbin Burns. And so, you know, if we're going to just keep taking these discounts until they start pricing him correctly. I also like Detroit for the first 5 at minus 105 against Hunter Gaddis. You know, beginning of the season, we're like, how long is Hunter Gaddis actually going to pitch? Is he just going to be a 2 innings in one time through the order and get out of there? He's averaging around 4 innings per start here. So it looks like Cleveland is letting him go a little bit longer than we thought he would. And I don't really see him as a significantly or even an even pitcher with Eduardo Rodriguez. I know Eduardo Rodriguez had a bad year last year in Detroit, but I mean, he's got significantly better stuff plus and Loki and pitching plus stuff than Hunter Gaddis. And also, I was looking at this, it's very early in a small sample size, but the Guardians were one of the best offensive team or defensive teams in Major League Baseball last season. They're second to last in defensive run save to begin the season. So maybe they have this huge advantage defensively that they would normally over other teams. So I do project Eduardo Rodriguez at minus 123 for the first 5 innings. So anything minus 110 or better is good enough for me there. I also like the Cubs A's under 8.5. Hayden was you're going to have to pronounce his name for me. Wisniewski. Hayden Wisniewski has had a couple rough Wisniewski has had a couple rough starts to begin the season, but he projects out to be a pretty decent starting pitcher on a 4.5, even maybe a 4.4 starting pitcher. And he's going up against Kyle Mueller, who's also had a rough start, but again, he's projecting to be around a 4 ERA pitcher. They're playing in Oakland, which is obviously a pitcher's friendly park. And I think this total is just a little bit too high. I only project 7.7 runs. So under 8.5 in Cubs A's for me. And that'll do it for me.
Bundo, take us home. You've also got Blue Jays Astros under, like BJ gave out at the top of the show.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 dudes who I bet to win the Cy Young in the American League, I think I'm going to have the under almost every time they play, especially when it opens 8.5, down to 8 now. I still like it at 8, 7.5, no longer like it. Houston Their offense against right-handed pitching, both offenses are in their worst offensive split as well. Just to add to that, I won't go on and on about how good and how much I love both of those two pitchers. So we can keep moving along the train here. I'm going to also take the Cubs with BJ's on the under. I'm going to take the Cubs first 5. Look, Wisniewski again. This is my third time backing him. He's gotten rocked on both occasions. His xERA is over 10. I'm not going to give up on him after 2 bad starts. The stuff is fine. The sweeper is moving. The fastball's still below average, but he hides it decently well normally. And I don't think he'll allow 4.5 homers per 9 forever. He had 2 really brutal pitching environments, right? He pitched at Cincinnati with the wind blowing out to right, and then he pitched at Wrigley with the wind blowing straight out 10, 15 miles an hour. Now he goes to Oakland, a much more favorable pitching environment. So I'm going to take the Cubs in the first 5 innings at -130. And then I like the overs, first 5 and full game, Arizona and St. Louis. Merrill Kelly is a guy I backed a lot last year. He showed some really interesting stuff gains in the spring and then had a really good command all year long. But what you see with some of these journeyman veterans is that they may put together a season where their command is really good and they look sharp and they're able to get by with mediocre stuff. But what happens is they tend to regress the next season back to kind of what they are. And Merrill Kelly, as much as I loved, betting on him last year, he's been a bit of a fade for me this year. Same, similar story to like a Miles Michaelis, who's had a similarly big issue in St. Louis, where he had a veteran year where he was good, commanded it well, but the stuff was never really there. It's hard to sustain location year to year unless you're one of the top guys. So I'm going to fade him, and Jack Flaherty has walked more batters than anybody in baseball. Arizona is a lineup that doesn't really chase outside of the zone very often. They were one of the best in the league last year. They're average this year. They're a very patient lineup. And St. Louis played back-to-back extra inning games. Their bullpen is very taxed. They did not get deep starts from Matz or Michaelis in those last 2 starts against the Pirates, and they had to play extras. A lot of high-stress innings on those high-leverage relievers. Jordan Hicks has looked terrible. And Helsley got used twice. So there are some real concerns in that bullpen as well. So I like the overs in Arizona and St. Louis.
Excellent. I wanted to add with Wisniewski, Cubs are scoring runs when he starts. 26 runs in the 2 starts he's made this year. The
Cubs are 2-0 when he starts. So
right,
he's a winner, even though his ERA is 7.5.
14-9 against Seattle and 12-5 to open the year. So they like getting up for Wisniewski. That's it, everybody. We're done for this Monday show. Thanks to BJ Cunningham, Anthony DiBundo. If they add anything else to their picks that they've got lined up today, their betting cards for today's 12 gamer, find them in the Action Network app. Download it. It's for free, and you can find them and their picks. We are here tomorrow, also on Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Friday during the season. Thanks for listening to Action Network's MLB Betting Podcast, which is presented by BetMGM Payoff Pitch. You all have a great Monday, and talk to you again tomorrow.